New economic data shows inflation has cooled in the last month, coming in lower than economists expected. But the prices at the register are still high. And now new tariffs have gone into effect. That happened today. It's an added 25% charge on aluminum and steel imports coming into the United States. And Canada is expected to announce more than $20 billion in retaliatory tariffs. But Wall Street seems to like the data so far. It's kind of a soft opening right now. They opened up slightly higher. They are down now, but we're going to keep an eye on that and obviously bring you developments as warranted. The Dow relatively flat at the moment. So let's go to CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady, who's here with us to break it all down. So first, let's begin, Kelly, with that CPI report. What did we learn?
Okay, so came in lighter than expected. The headline number for an annual increase was 2.8%. That's down from 3% last month. Okay, so we're getting closer to the 2% target that the Fed likes to see. But we are
still 800 basis points.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like a mini celebration, but let's not break the bank here. What I think was interesting is when you break it down, shelter accounted for nearly half of the increase that we saw in the month. And of course, that's been a big story. Housing, rent. I mean, that's just sort of a big cost for people. That's a need to have, not a nice to have. Airline fares, though, that's really where you saw a lot of the dip. It dropped 4% in the month alone. And so, as did gasoline. So a lot of economists I'm talking to, they're trying to parse out, was this just, well, the airlines are passing on that gasoline, that energy savings to the consumer, or is it slowing demand, which we have heard a lot of airlines talking about.
Again, anecdotally, but maybe the numbers bear this out, that given the recent number of crashes that we've had here in the United States, that people are a little worried about flying. I can tell you, I just got on a plane. Everybody on my flight was sort of looking at each other, not worried per se, but it's in the back of your mind. And if you don't have to travel, maybe people are putting it off.
That's a possibility, and also I think there's just this, we've talked about the consumer sentiment numbers. People are starting to pull back a little bit. Maybe those vacations, spring break, summer break, they just are saying, okay, I'm going to drive or I'm not going to do something because I'm not sure what the economic future looks like when it comes to inflation and how much money I'm making.
So these tariffs that are going into effect, that's not reflected in this latest number, right? So what could we possibly see? And it's interesting because, and you and I have talked about this for the last year, during the Biden administration, we saw inflation coming down. But what was the refrain from, mom and dad and ordinary people on Main Street? Well, the numbers may show one thing, but we're still feeling it at the pump, at the gas station, at the grocery store, with airfares. It seems like it's a little bit of that here. Inflation is coming down on paper, but people are still feeling high prices.
Yeah, and let's remember, just because the inflation rate is coming down, that doesn't mean your prices are going down. It's that your prices are rising at a slower rate than they were. So that's always important to keep in mind. And of course, the White House is celebrating this today, which, look, this is actually a very good report for their first month. But you mentioned the tariffs. How is that going to impact the next couple of months? This report specifically, we got about 10% of, we got a 10% tariff on China at the beginning of February. It does get a little bit of that impact, but really what people are looking at are these 25% tariffs on aluminum and steel, these reciprocal tariffs that are coming April 2nd. So that's going to be these next few reports. How much of the pass-through are you going to get from businesses passing that on to consumers, and does that tick inflation up higher?
So on CBS Mornings, you had a really fascinating report looking at the tariffs and how it's going to impact the cost of aluminum and steel. It's really, really interesting what you uncovered over the last couple of days. Talk to me about it.
Yeah, so you think aluminum and steel, you think cars. We actually went to a brewery because what does your favorite West Coast IPA come in? It comes in a can or a tall boy. And so what we were talking to them about is this aluminum and steel, they're going to get that mostly from Canada, and they're going to see an increase about 5 to 10 cents per can. So you kind of think about a case in general, that's going to be about $1.50, $2. And they're a craft brewery. There are often cheaper, other options on the market. The other thing is the grain.
Yeah.
We also are looking at a 25% tariff on Canada and Mexico come April 2nd when the goods that are not covered under USMCA go through. And what do you need? You need the hops and everything. And so they're also going to be dealing with an increase in cost, not just on the material, the packaging, but also the inputs to the beer. So you often think about cars and the home industry, but really these tariffs, I mean, just impact everything possible that you could imagine.
Yeah, we do have a soundbite that we want to play for our viewers that specifically relates to the what we're talking about here. Let's see it.
Well, as prices go up, we're going to have to, there's two ways that they're going to get absorbed. One is by the builder, which eats into the builder's margins. Or two, and probably the most likely scenarios, those costs are going to be passed on to the ultimate homeowner or renter in the form of higher costs.
So there, we're still talking about aluminum and steel, but now it's related to people and home building. And I've heard this from a lot of economists as well, that this is going to impact home builders.
Yes, and think about all of the different places that have just had natural disasters in the past year that really need to rebuild, construction in general. I mean, aluminum and steel, you think of the frame of the house, that's a big one. And so the question is, are builders going to eat that cost? Probably not. And we're already seeing prices when it comes to homes, mortgage rates. I mean, it just is such a tough time for anyone trying to get into the home market that could make it worse.
I think you're right. Probably not is the answer I'd go with. Kelly, always great to have you in Studio 55. Thanks, my friend. Appreciate it.